The Book of Genesis, chapters 36 through 42. Chapter 36. Now these are the descendants of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took wives from the women of Canaan: Adah the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Ahlibamah the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Bashmath the daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Benaiah. And Adah bore to Esau Eliphaz, and Bashmath bore Reuel, and Ahlibamah bore Jaish and Jamal and Korah. These are the sons of Esau, which they bore to him in the land of Canaan. Esau afterwards took his wives, and his sons and daughters, and all the persons of his house, and the flocks, and all his cattle, and all property which he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and left the land from the face of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too great to remain together, for the land was not able to lodge the both of them because of their herds. Esau is Edom. Esau was the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of the sons of Edom: Eliphaz the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel the son of Bashmath, wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Eliphaz: Omar, Zipho, and Nathan, and Kenaz. And Timnah was secondary wife to Eliphaz the son of Esau, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. These are the sons of Adah, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Reuel: Nahath, and Zerath, Shammah, and Mizzah. These were the sons of Bashmath, wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Ahlibamah, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, wife of Esau, which she bore to Esau: Jaish, and Jalam, and Korah. These were the chiefs from the sons of Esau and of the sons of Eliphaz, the eldest of Esau: chief Tamar, chief Omar, chief Zipho, chief Kenaz, chief Korah, chief Nathan, chief Amalek. These were the chieftains of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. They were the sons of Adah. And these were the sons of Reuel the son of Esau: chief Nahath, chief Zerah, chief Shammah, chief Mizzah. These were chieftains of Reuel in the land of Edom. They were sons of Bashmath, the wife of Esau. These were sons of Esau, and were chieftains in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Seir, the Horites who inhabited the country: Lotan, and Shubal, and Zileon, and Anah, and Dishon, and Azar, and Dishan. These were chieftains of the Horites, sons of Seir, in the land of Edom. And these were the sons of Lotan: Hori, and Himam. And the sister of Lotan was Timnah. And these are the sons of Shobal: Alwan, and Manahath, and Ibal, Shapha, and Anam. And these are the sons of Zibeon: Aiah, and Anah. He is the Anah who discovered mules in the desert while attending the asses of Zibeon his father. These are the children of Anah: Dishon, and Ahlibamah, daughter of Anah. And these are the sons of Dishon: Hamadan, and Ashban, and Ithran, and Keran. These are the sons of Azan: Bilkan, and Zavan, and Achan. These are the sons of Dishan: Aor, and Aran. These are the chiefs of the Horites: chief Lotan, chief Shubal, chief Zibeon, chief Anah, chief Dishon, chief Azer, chief Dishan. These were chiefs of the Horites, as chieftains in the land of Seir. And these are the names of the chieftains of Esau by their families, with their tribal names: chief Timnah, chief Alva, chief Ethaph, chief Ahlibamah, chief Allah, chief Pinan, chief Kana, chief Teman, chief Mibzar, chief Magdiel, chief Iram. These were chieftains of Edom, with the names of the districts they possessed. Esau himself was the father of the people of Edom. Chapter 37. Jacob continued to reside in the land of his father's foreignhood, in the land of Canaan. These are the progeny of Jacob. Joseph, a lad of 17 years, was attending to the sheep with his brothers, the young men who were sons of Bilhah and sons of Zilpah, two of his father's wives. And Joseph reported their bad conduct to their father. Israel also loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. So he made him a robe with long sleeves. And his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, so they hated him, and would not let him be in peace. Joseph, however, dreamed a dream, and told it to his brothers, and they hated him the more for it. For he said, "Listen now to the dream that I dreamed. We were binding sheaves in the middle of a field, when my sheaf arose and stood up, and your sheaves turned and bowed to my sheaf." But they replied to their brother, "Reigning would you reign, and ruling would you rule over us?" So they hated him the more, because of his dream and his talk. Then he dreamed another dream, and related it to his brothers, and said, "I have dreamed another dream, when the sun and the moon and 11 stars came and did homage to me." He told it to his father and to his brothers, and his father reproved him, and said, "What is this dream which you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers come and bow down to the ground to you?" So his brothers envied him, but his father remembered the event. His brothers afterwards went to pasture their father's sheep in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the sheep in Shechem? Go, I will send you to them." And he replied, "I am ready." Then he continued, "Go, then, and see how your brothers are, and how the sheep are, and bring me word." They had gone, however, from the vale of Hebron, and removed to Shechem. And a man met him while searching the field, and asked him, "What are you seeking?" When he answered, "I am seeking my brothers. Tell me where I can find them." So the man responded, "They have marched from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to the 2 wells.'" Joseph consequently went after his brothers, and found them at the 2 wells. When they saw him in the distance, and before he approached them, they determined to murder him. And each said to his brother, "Here is my lord the dreamer, there he comes. So now let us go and murder him, and fling him into one of these wells, and we will say a wild beast caught him. Then we shall see what will come of his dreams." But Reuben heard it, and wished to deliver him from their hand. So he said, "Let us not destroy his life." Reuben also said to them, "Let us not shed his blood. Let us fling him into this dry well." For he was desirous that they should not stab him, so that he might rescue him from their hands, to return him to his father. Therefore when Joseph was come to his brothers, they stripped the robe from Joseph, the long-sleeved robe which was on him, and took him and flung him into the empty well, with no water in it. Then they turned to eat bread. But looking up they saw at a distance Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels loaded with spices, and nuts, and balm, who were going down to Mitzraim. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it to us to murder our brother and dabble ourselves in his blood? Come on, let us sell him to these Ishmaelites, and that guilt will not be upon us, for he is our brother and our own flesh." So they listened to their brother. Meantime those Midianite merchants came on and approached. So they pulled up Joseph from out of the well, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels. Thus Joseph was taken down to Mitzraim. Therefore when Reuben returned to the well, he did not find Joseph in the well, so he tore his garments. When he went back to his brothers, he said, "The lad is not, and mourning I shall grieve and die of grief." They, however, took and slaughtered a goat kid, and dabbled his robe in its blood, and sent the long-sleeved robe to their father with this message: "About this robe which we send you, send back and say if it is the robe of your son or no." And he replied, "It is the robe of my son. Some wild beast has torn and eaten my son." Jacob consequently tore his garments, and put on sackcloth for his death, and mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and all his daughters arose to console him, but he refused their consolations, and said, "I know that I shall go mourning for my son to the grave." So he wept for his son. But the Midianites sold him in Mitzraim to Potiphar, the general of Pharaoh, commander of his guards. Chapter 38. About this same time Judah went and separated from his brothers, and joined with an Adulamite, whose name was Hira. Whilst there he saw the daughter of a Canaanite, whose name was Bathshua, and he took her and married her, and she conceived and bore a son, and called his name Ar. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and called his name Onan. She afterwards increased and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. Then she ceased to be childbearing. When Judah took a wife for his eldest son Ar, her name was Tamar. But Ar, Judah's eldest son, was wicked in the presence of the ever-living, so the Lord caused him to die. Judah consequently said to Onan, "Marry the wife of your brother, and raise up an heir for your brother." But Onan knew that the heir would not be his own. Therefore, when he approached his brother's wife, he ejected on the ground, instead of giving seed to his brother. What he did was, however, wicked in the eyes of the ever-living, and therefore he caused him to die. Then Judah said to Tamar, "Return as a widow to your father's house, until Shelah my son grows up." For he reflected, "Perhaps she may also kill him like his brothers." Therefore Tamar went and returned to her father's house. But time went on, and Bathshua the wife of Judah died, and Judah grieved for her, and went up with Hira the Adullamite his partner, to shear the sheep at Timnath. And it was reported to Tamar that her father-in-law was going up to Timnath to shear his sheep. So she put off her widow's weeds, and concealed herself in her veil, and went down and sat at the opening by the wells which are on the road to Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown up, and he was not given to her as a husband. Judah saw her, and he thought she was a harlot, for she had hidden her face. So he turned from the road to her and said, "Come on, go with me." For he knew not she was his daughter-in-law. Then she asked, "What will you give to me if I go with you?" Then he replied, "I will send you a kid of the goats or sheep." And she replied, "If you will give me a pledge that you will send them?" He replied, "What is the pledge that I shall give you?" And she answered, "Your ring and the stick you have in your hand." So he gave her them, and he went with her, and she conceived to him. Then she arose, and went and put the veil from off her, and dressed herself in her widow's weeds. But Judah sent the kid of the goats by the hand of his partner the Adullamite, who was to receive the pledge from the hand of the woman, and he could not find her. He therefore inquired of the men of the place, asking, "Where is the whore of the wells by the road?" But they replied, "There is no whore by there." So he returned to Judah and reported, "I cannot find her." And the men of the place said, "There was not a whore there." Judah therefore said, "You have taken it to her, therefore I cannot be abused by her. For I sent the kid, but you could not find her." But 3 months after it was reported to Judah, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has prostituted herself, and she is also with child from her fornication." And Judah replied, "Bring her here and burn her." They brought her when she produced the ring and walking stick, and said, "By the man that these belong to, I am with child." And she continued, "To whom belongs this ring and its motto, and this walking stick?" Then Judah replied and said, "You are more virtuous than I, for I did not give you Shelah my son." He therefore proceeded no further to examine her. When therefore the time for her delivery came, there were twins in her belly, and it happened in her childing one put out his hand. So the midwife took it, and tied a scarlet thread upon its hand, remarking, "This came the first." But it occurred that he drew back the hand, and then his brother was produced. When she said, "What? Have you broken? The breach be upon yourself." Therefore she called his name Pharez. And afterwards his brother was born, upon whose hand was the scarlet thread. So she called his name Zara. Chapter 39. Thus Joseph had been taken down to Mitzer, and sold to Potiphar, Pharaoh's general, commander of the guards, a Mitzrayite, from the hands of the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. But the ever-living was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man, and was steward to his master, the Mitzrayite. For his master saw that the ever-living was with him, and that all he did the Lord prospered it in his hand. Joseph therefore found favor in his eyes, for he was honest towards him. Consequently he appointed him chief of his house, and entrusted all his possessions to his control, with the result that from when he was appointed over the house, and over all that belonged to him, the ever-living blessed the house of the Mitzrayite under the administration of Joseph, and he was blessed by the ever-living in all his possessions, in the house and in the field, so that all he had increased under the direction of Joseph. Consequently he made no enquiry about what he had, except for the bread which he ate. Joseph was also handsome in form and handsome in face. It happened, however, after these events, that the wife of his master lifted up her eyes to Joseph, and said, "Lie with me." But he refused, and said to his master's wife, "My master knows not what is in his house, and all that he possesses he has placed in my control. There is not a greater than I in this house, and he has withheld nothing from me except yourself, because you are his wife. Therefore I will not commit that great sin and outrage against God." However, she solicited Joseph day after day, but he would not listen to her, to lie down beside her, or be with her. But it happened that one day, when he came to her apartment with a message for her, and there were none of the attendants of the house there in the apartment, that she seized him by his wrapper, saying, "Lie with me." But he let his wrapper slip off in her hand, and fled away naked. So when she saw that he had left his wrapper in her hand, and had fled naked, she cried out to the attendants of her house, and said to them, "Look, he has brought this foreign fellow to us to insult us. He came to me to violate me, but I shrieked out, and when he heard that I raised my voice and shrieked, then he left his wrapper beside me and fled naked." She also laid by the wrapper with her till her lord came home, when she spoke to him about all this matter, saying, "There came to me the Hebrew slave, whom you brought to us to insult me. But when I raised my voice to cry out, he abandoned his wrapper near me, and fled away naked." And when his master heard the tale of his wife, which she told him, asserting, "Your servant acted towards me according to my statements," he was fired with anger. Therefore Joseph's master took and put him into the tower house, the place where the prisoners of the king were imprisoned, and he was confined in the tower house. But the Ever-living was with Joseph, and gave him mercy, and gave him favor in the eyes of the commander of the tower house, so that the commander of the tower house placed in Joseph's hands the whole of the prisoners who were in the tower house, and all that was done there he directed it. The commander of the tower did not superintend anything, the whole was in his hands, because the Ever-living was with him, and what he did, the Lord prospered it. Chapter 40. But it occurred after these events, that the butler of the king of the Mitzrayim offended, and the king of the Mitzrayim his master was angry. And Pharaoh was enraged with 2 of his officers, with the chief of the butlers, and with the chief of the cooks, and he ordered them to be confined in the house of the commander of the guards, in the tower house, the place where Joseph was also imprisoned. The commander of the guards consequently remitted them to Joseph, and he kept them, and they were many days under restraint. But they dreamed, both of them a dream, each dream in the same night. Each dream had a separate appearance, to the butler and to the cook whom the king of the Mitzrayim had imprisoned in the tower house. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw their pining gloom. So he asked the officers of Pharaoh who were in his custody in the house of his master, "Why are your faces sad and sorrowful today?" And they replied, "We have dreamed dreams, and we have not an interpreter." But Joseph answered, "Is not God the interpreter of dreams? Tell to me now." The chief butler therefore told his dream to Joseph, and said to them, "In my dream I saw a vine before me, and on the vine 3 branches, and the berries grew on them, and the clusters of grapes were ripe, and Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. So I took the grapes and crushed them into the cup of Pharaoh, and put the cup into the hand of Pharaoh." Joseph then said to him, "This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. After 3 days hence Pharaoh will raise your head, and restore you to your station, and you will give Pharaoh's cup to his hand, as was appointed formerly, when you were his butler. Then remember me, because I was kind to you. Do me therefore a kindness, and remind Pharaoh of me, and cause him to bring me out of this house. For by treachery I was dragged from the country of the Hebrews, and also here I have done no crime that should put me in a dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he also said to Joseph, "I have dreamed as well. And there were 3 baskets filled on my head, and in the highest basket of all, victuals for Pharaoh, ready baked. But the birds ate them from the basket, and from my head." Then Joseph answered and said, "This is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. 3 days from hence Pharaoh will take your head from off you, and will hang you on a gallows, and the birds shall eat your flesh from off you." It happened that 3 days after was Pharaoh's birthday, and he made a feast for all his officers, and raised the head of the chief of the butlers, and the head of the chief of the bakers among his officers, and restored the chief of the butlers to his butlership, and he gave the cup to the hand of Pharaoh. But he hung the chief of the bakers, as Joseph had interpreted the dream. The chief of the butlers, however, did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Chapter 41. Some time after, it occurred that Pharaoh dreamed, and seemed standing by the river, and saw 7 cows come up from the river, beautiful to see, and full-fleshed, and they fed upon the rushes. Then he saw 7 other cows come up after them from the river, poor to look upon, and lean in flesh. And they approached the cows on the bank of the river, and the cows that were poor to look upon and lean in flesh ate up the 7 beautiful-looking and fat cows. Then Pharaoh awoke. He slept again and dreamed, and saw 7 ears of corn spring up from one stalk, very beautiful and good. He saw also 7 ears of corn spring up after them, withered and blighted by the east wind. And the 7 withered ears of corn swallowed the 7 beautiful and good ears. Then Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. When morning came, his spirit was oppressed. So he sent and summoned all the writers of Mitzrayim, and all her scientists, and Pharaoh related his dreams to them. But there was not an interpreter among them for Pharaoh. Then the chief of the butlers spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my offense of the day when Pharaoh was angry with his servant, and put me into custody in the house of the general of the guard. And the chief of the bakers was with me, and we dreamed a dream in the same night, I and he, each according to the form of the dream we had dreamed. But there was with us a Hebrew youth, a slave of the general of the guard, and we related them to him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. He interpreted to each his own dream, and it happened to us exactly as he interpreted to us our dream. Pharaoh therefore sent and summoned Joseph, and they took him from the dungeon, and shaved him, and changed his clothes, and brought him to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh told Joseph the dream he had dreamed, and that none could interpret it to him. But I have heard a report about you, that you heard a dream and interpreted it. Joseph accordingly answered to Pharaoh, saying, May God return an answer of peace to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh related his dream to Joseph. I stood by the bank of the river, and saw come up from the river 7 cows, full-fleshed and beautiful to see, and they pastured on the rushes. Then I saw 7 other cows come up after them, miserable and very bad to look at, and lean in flesh. I never saw such wretched things in all the land of the Mitzrayim, they were so bad. But the lean and wretched cows ate up the 7 former beautiful cows, and they came and approached me, and yet I noticed as they came and drew near, and could observe they were poor as before. Then I awoke. Again I was in a dream, and saw 7 ears of corn spring from one stalk, each full and good. Then I saw 7 ears, blasted, poor, and withered by the east wind, follow them. And the poor ears swallowed the 7 good ears, and I told it to the writers, and they cannot inform me about it. Then Joseph replied to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is all one. What God has determined to do, he has related to Pharaoh. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears of corn are 7 years. These dreams are all one. And the 7 lean and poor cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 poor ears of corn, blasted by the east wind, they are 7 years of famine. This event which I have stated to Pharaoh, God has made known to Pharaoh. The 7 years before us will be great years in all the land of the Mitzrayim, but they will be followed by 7 years of famine afterwards, and those 7 shall be forgotten in the land of the Mitzrayim, for the famine shall desolate the land. For those 7 shall not be recognized in the land before the presence of the famine that will follow them, for it will be very heavy. As for the double dream granted to Pharaoh, that confirms the event from God, and God will hasten to effect it. Therefore let Pharaoh seek out a man firm and skillful, and set him over the Mitzrites, and let Pharaoh act and appoint officers over the land, and take a 5th part produced by the land of the Mitzrites, in the first 7 years of the 7s, and store up all that food in the 7 good years that are coming, and store up corn under the hand of Pharaoh for food in cities and fortresses, so that there may be food to support the land in the 7 years of famine, which will be in the land of the Mizrahites, so that the country may not be cut off by the famine." And this advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his ministers. Therefore Pharaoh commanded his ministers to select some man with the Spirit of God in him. Then afterwards Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have perceived that God is with you in all this, and there is certainly no intelligence like yours. Therefore you shall be over my house, and by your mouth all my affairs shall be regulated. Only in the throne will I be greater than you." Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "See, I appoint you over all the land of the Mizrahites." Then Pharaoh took his ring from his hand, and put it upon the hand of Joseph, and clothed him in a white robe, and put a golden chain on his neck, and mounted him in a hooded chariot of his own. And they proclaimed before him the appointment given to him over all the land of the Mizrahites. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your order no man shall move his hand or foot in all the land of the Mizrahites." Pharaoh consequently called the office of Joseph the high treasurership, and gave him Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, for a wife. Joseph at once made a survey of the whole land of the Mizrahites. Joseph was 30 years old on his appearance before Pharaoh king of the Mizrahites, and Joseph went from the presence of Pharaoh and organized all the land of Mizr. The earth also produced big loads in the 7 years of the sevens, and he collected much provision in the 7 years, in the land of Mizr, and stored up the provision. For every town he stored up provision from the fields around it. Joseph consequently stored corn like the sand of the sea for quantity. The amount was so great that they ceased to measure it, because it was immeasurable. Joseph also had 2 sons born to him before the years of the famine came. Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On, bore them, and Joseph called the name of the eldest Manasseh. "For God has made me forget all my troubles and all my father's house." But he called the name of the other Ephraim. "For God has enriched me in the land of my wrongs." Then the 7 years of the sevens, which were to be in the land of the Mizraim, came to an end, and at their end the 7 years of famine began, according to the declaration of Joseph. And the famine was upon all the lands, but in the land of the Mizraim there was bread. At last the whole country of the Mizrahites hungered, and the people called upon Pharaoh for bread. But Pharaoh replied to all the Mizrahites, "Go to Joseph, who will tell you what to do." And as the famine was over the whole surface of the country, Joseph opened the stores which he had by him, and distributed to the Mizrahites. Although the famine raged in the land of the Mizraim, yet all the countries came to the Mizraim to buy corn from Joseph, for the famine raged over all the countries round. Chapter 42. Jacob also learnt there was corn in Mizraim. So Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at each other?" He also said, "I have heard that there is corn in Mizraim. Descend to there and buy for us from it, that we may live and not die." Therefore 10 brothers of Joseph went down to buy corn from the Mizraim. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, the other brother of Joseph, with his other brothers, for he said, "I fear an injury might happen to him." Thus the sons of Israel went down to buy corn, together with other travelers, for there was a famine in the land of Canaan. Joseph was then protector over all the country, to distribute to all the people of the land, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed to him, face to the ground. When Joseph saw them, he scrutinized and recognized them, but spoke to them harshly, and asked, "From what country do you come?" They replied, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. But Joseph remembered the dream which he dreamed to himself, and said to them, "You are spies, come to survey the nakedness of the land." But they replied to him, "No, my lord, but your slaves have come to buy food, and all of us are sons of one man. We are honest men, we are not spies." However he replied, "No, but you are come to see the nakedness of the country." They then answered, "Your slaves were 12 brothers. We are the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. The youngest is at home today, and one is not." But Joseph returned, "That is just what I said to you, when I said you are spies. By this I will prove you. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go from here until you have brought your youngest brother here. Send one of yourselves to take your brother and return. Then you will prove your words true about him. And if not, by the life of Pharaoh you are spies. And he further ordered them to be imprisoned 3 days. But after the 3rd day Joseph said to them, Do this and live, for I fear God. I will select one of you brothers, whom I will put into confinement instead of you. And you others take corn for your starving families. But you must bring your younger brother to me and verify your statement, and live and not die. And they did so. But each said to his brother, We suffer for our sins against our brother, because we saw the anguish of his soul, imploring us to have pity on him, and we would not listen. Therefore this distress has come upon us. Then Reuben answered them and said, Did I not speak to you and say, Let us not sin against the lad? And you would not listen to me? And now his blood is sought for. And they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he used an interpreter with them. But he withdrew from them and wept. Then he returned to them and spoke, and selected Simeon from them, and fettered him before their eyes. Joseph afterwards commanded, and their wagons were loaded with corn. But he caused their money to be returned into the load of each. Then he gave them leave to go, and showed politeness to them. They also loaded corn upon their asses, and set out. But one of them opened a sack of his to give fodder to his ass in the inn, and saw his money, which was placed openly in its mouth. Then he said to his brothers, He has caused my money to be returned, and here it is in my bag. And their hearts stopped, and they trembled each at his brother, exclaiming, What is this that God has done to us? They went, however, to Jacob in the land of Canaan, and reported to him all these proceedings, saying, The man who is master of the country spoke to us harshly, and took us for spies upon the land. But we said to him, We are honest, and are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is now with our father in the land of Canaan. But the man who is master of the country said, By this I will discover if you are honest. I will select one of your brothers to remain with me, but take for your starving families and go. But you shall bring me your youngest brother, that I may be convinced you are not spies, when I will return the brother I have selected from you, and you may trade in the country. When, however, they were emptying their loads, then each found his money in his cargo, and they were in fear at the finding of the money. Both they and their father were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, I am bereaved. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and you would take from me all there are. Then Reuben replied to his father, saying, Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring them back to you. I now place them in your hands as a pledge that I will return them to you. But he answered, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone remains, and an accident might happen to him in the journey that you are going, and you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. The end of chapters 36 through 42 of the book of Genesis. Recording by Mark Penfold.